I'm Brent Leary.
Paul Greenberg.
We are the CRM players in Bundle Up. It's about to be really cold here.
Isn't it already really cold there?
No, nothing like what it's going to be, apparently. It's going to go down into like maybe even the single digits here in Atlanta.
Oh
Yikes.
my God, really?
That's just not good.
What is it now?
40 something.
Are you kidding?
Yeah, it's great now.
Yeah, we're like at 20. And we're
Yikes.
going down to -1 to -8.
Let's see if you can see that.
47.
Yeah.
Wow. Now I'm going to check on Manassas. I wonder what it is. Okay.
But by Saturday, it'll be down to 15 degrees. Yikes.
Yeah, we're here at us. I don't know if you can see it, but we're at 24.
Yeah, that's cold.
Yeah, and again, it's mostly the cats outside we're worried about. Every cat's back except one we haven't seen yet.
Anyway, this is why we do the CRM players. We do weather reports and we do whatever else. And we've been doing it since 2009.
We're bringing the
Yeah.
wow. I'm trying to figure out how weather works with as. I can't.
I don't know what that works with, but I know what does work with The Godfather. It's the moment of Sven.
Whoa. Oh, Jesus. Okay, so this is. It could be. Yeah, I can't read Cyrillic, but it's Russian. But it could be Mongolian again, since I didn't no idea it was Cyrillic. It could be any Russian former Soviet state like Belarus, or Kazakhstan or Uzbekistan or any of those. It could be. I mean, it's not Greek though.
Me.
It's one of the Russian language Cyrillic family of languages, which is impossible for me to know because I can't read Cyrillic. But I mean, I'll take my shot at Russian. I mean, it's all I can say because it's one way or the other. It's related to it. I can say that. But boy, Sven's really getting our esoteric here, man. But thank you, Sven. That's a good one.
He's picked up the game. His game. Okay, looks like it is Mongolian.
Again, remember I said it could be Mongolian again, and that's me. That's my quote.
What?
That's a quote from my definition of CRM. That was my original definition of CRM, and the one that allowed me to be part of it, meaning I never liked business at all. And this was my justification for liking CRM.
Wow.
Oh, that's an easy one, Sven. That literally was one of my earliest definitions of CRM. Not the one that stuck as much, but the one that's actually closest to what the truth was about CRM then. Wow, that's a really good one. And you did Mongolian twice. Remember I said Russian, it could be Mongolian again, was my second choice, but I didn't think he would do it twice.
He's getting sneaky.
Yeah, he is. To you, Sven.
Oh, wow. We're drinking.
Yeah. I'm drinking BAI Zambia Bing Cherry.
Wow. Well, while you do that, let's do a little house keeping. Yes. Next Wednesday, it's the crunch. We need like a sound effect every time you say
Actually,
that.
You're right.
That'd be really good.
All right.
Because it's gonna be a good episode because look who Rebecca and of course Patrick. We probably should put Patrick in there somewhere in these promos. Guess who is joined? Well, you already know who's.
Yeah, let me guess. Is Stump the Godfather now?
No, this Rebecca is being joined by ServiceNow's Terrence Cesare, and as we like to call him here, he is the smoothest man in CRM.
Yes, he is. This is the smoothest. This guy, I mean, how long have we known him now? It must be getting maybe not a decade, but close to it.
Pretty long.
Rock star and a half, man.
Well, and they are, and Terrence is joining Rebecca to talk about CX CRM convergence.
Convergence.
Yes. Why ecosystems matter.
Well, that's a good one.
And the future of CX value and metrics in the era of AI.
Okay. It all sounds good to me. The convergence of CRM and CX is a little bit weird, only because it diverged almost deliberately.
Sven is trying to get you to struggle, apparently. And
you're good. I mean, Sven, you're getting me there. You're getting me to struggle. I mean, I knew with my quote right away that was easy. And I guess Mongolian is number 2, but that's only because I had no idea Mongolian was Cyrillic until you showed it a couple of weeks ago. Well, it's funny. Convergence of CRM and CX. I have to think about that. I'm not sure. It kind of depends on what they mean by that. Because from my standpoint, CRM is what CRM is. It's operational technology, right? And not what I wanted it to be, but what it was, what it became, what markets said it was, what people who use it say it is, et cetera, et cetera. And CX, in effect, evolved as from the original, let's call it, more idealistic version of CRM we all had, where it was CX and it were the same thing. And social CRM, to me, at least, if I'm trying to make it nice and smooth in terms of a transition, and given that he is the smoothest guy, social CRM was kind of the transition point. It was kind of the, with CRM, social CRM, and emerging from social CRM, we went back to traditional CRM on the operational side, and CX emerged from there as the human behavior side. It goes to my actual quote, right, that Sven so kindly outlined in Mongolian.
Now, before we, Sven has posed a really interesting question, but before we get to that, because I think I have a nice segue because of that, why don't we get to this? It's getting closer and closer.
Yeah, isn't it? Well, it looks like for those, like, you know what? Why don't we use this as an occasion to announce the contest too? What do you think? All right.
Go for it.
So look, guys, I think you all know by now, given we talk about it every single week, that March 11th and 12th is IRL 2026. Following a year to 13 months, 14 months later, on the heels of IRL 2025, which was wildly successful, was supposed to be a one-off, but was so successful, here we have IRL 2026. Now, as you know, we have speaking, at the conference, we have Michael Wu is going to speak on, in a world of AI, what the lunatics can teach us. And we have Jeff Gomez, who will be speaking on storytelling in whatever way he wants to, really. And, Jeff is like, let's put it this way. He is the guy who does what Disney calls on him to do some of the most biggest name movies and animations and so on and so forth you've ever heard of. He did the storytelling arc for those kind of things. I mean, that's how big a deal he is. And we have people like that, and we have the great debates again, and we have 2 other things we're going to try, and we have in the community room adjacent to where the main stage is, we're going to be doing a number of our shows. There's a lot more, but this is just a quick overview.
Well, let's answer this question over Atlanta. Well, I guess it depends on where you are, but
yes, like,
but I guess if you're in Germany,
I wish you would come, Sven. I wish we could work it out. If you do, we will bring you on the main stage to do a moment of Sven. That's a promise. That is an absolute promise.
But if you can't make it, don't worry. You should be able to experience a great deal of it if everything goes right.
We are going to virtually do the whole damn thing. So now, here's the thing. One of the things we're going to do, with the community show, with the community room, with the shows, we have one slot where we're going to try something very new. It was triggered by a conversation actually I had, and then Brent kind of built out my original thought into something that really makes it work now. Which was I was talking to a young person who will be attending, who I think will be one of the 3 participants potentially, that she wanted to do a video. They all call them podcasts. They're not. Brent and I, these are episode of a show, right? She wanted to do a video show, and we were chatting about it, and it occurred to me, well, maybe we could just provide someone with some, do I thought a 20-minute pilot, and Brent said, "No, let's make it a contest," and we ended up. The idea would be 3 10-minute pilots that would have a live studio audience. We professionally recorded with our team, and at the end of the 3, pilots, we'd have the studio audience vote on the one they like the best. Now, what that one gets for that, we have no idea yet. But we would have 3 people getting a shot at actually doing something that they were looking forward to doing. Now, if you're interested in doing that, you want to be one of those people, reach out on LinkedIn, since nobody ever writes down my email. Reach out on LinkedIn to me and tell me you're interested in doing that. Now, you have to attend. It's only in person. This is not virtual. You have to be in front of a live audience. Now, what you will get as one of the 3 people who do it will be a recording of your efforts to use any way you like. That's for sure. If there's something else, we'll figure that out later. So if you look, this is your shot, man, and you'll be in front of a live audience and you get a good critique and you'll have it professionally produced, so do it. Now, what your criteria, very simple. Come up with a subject, realize it's 10 minutes, come up with a format, and you have to know these in advance, and make sure you're there. But Brent and I will approve the subject matter. Don't forget, this is IRL 2026. It's the CRM CXCE community. AI is obviously in the heart of it as well as adjacent to it, and adjacent subjects are welcome. But this is not where you're going to do one on ERP. Okay, so you find a subject that would interest the community here, who will be there. Okay, and that's it. So again, find me on LinkedIn if you're interested, and it's all yours to do.
All righty, that was a good one. All right, let's move into what I was talking about. Sven had posted this other question, not the one that you just talked about, but this one. Actually, it wasn't that one.
It went away.
What?
So
oh, wait a minute. I was like, oh, okay. This is the one. Sven has been really putting out a lot of good comments there. But this is one. Do we need CX any longer in times of AI? Now, I wanted to bring this up because it's kind of like a really interesting potential segue into something I've been watching for a while. A lot of people have been watching this, but let's go back to this.
Sledgehammer?
Well, not enough people watch that, or would have been on longer. These stock prices of a lot of the companies that are involved in some way or another in enterprise SaaS, or just maybe SaaS, I don't know, enterprise SaaS for our concerns. Companies that, like, of course, Microsoft and Salesforce and ServiceNow and Adobe and HubSpot, and they have been really beaten up over the last 12 to 18 months, basically. And a lot of it seems to be centered around how do they make money off all the AI investments that they're making. And, all of these companies, I mean, the amount of total investment that these big companies are making in AI is kind of stupefying. And I guess it's been going on since when ChatGPT came out, what, 3 years ago now?
Yep, 2022, actually, November.
So over 3 plus years. And I think the vendors are having a very hard time telling a story of how they can monetize these huge investments they're making in AI. Now, the companies that have made out really well with this stuff are companies like Nvidia and Broadcom and AMD, and now Micron has gone crazy this week. I mean, it's up like gangbusters. And we call those the pick and shovel kind of AI plays, because
Well,
they're the ones.
ultimately, they're hardware companies, one way or the other.
Well, the hardware, but they're providing all the stuff
it-
for these companies to, dig for gold, so to speak. But it's been 3 or 4 years, and I think the financial community is really having a kind of getting nervous, because the money that is being invested is going up, while there doesn't really appear to be a lot of signs for how this is all going to be monetized. So last night, Microsoft and Meta and ServiceNow all announced their quarterly earnings. Now, this is the funny part. I should have had the Alan Trefler thing queued up. Meta announced, and their stocks went crazy good. Really, they were up 6% after hours, which is like $50 a share. At the same time that Microsoft announced, and Microsoft, all of a sudden, their stock started tumbling and tumbling and tumbling. Not just them, ServiceNow also announced. Now, Microsoft and ServiceNow, they are definitely not the same kind of company. But they were kind of treated the same way after their earnings, and they both beat expectations, I think, both on revenue and on income. All three of these guys. But those two, Microsoft and ServiceNow, dropped like a rock, while Meta just flew. Kind of like they weren't averse to making a lot of money, as like Alan Trefler might say. So I did something that I would have never done a year ago, or even 2 years ago, whatever. I went to Gemini and I asked a simple question. Why did Meta go up 9% overnight? And why did companies like Microsoft and ServiceNow go down? Now, this is what it said for why Meta went up. And I'm not going to like read all of that stuff, but needless to say, they had really good earnings. They were very upbeat on with where they see the future over the next 6 to 12 months. All the stuff that financial analysts like to hear. But look at the third paragraph there. AI monetization is real. Unlike its peers, Meta is proving that its massive AI spending is driving immediate results in its core ad business. So they can actually tie how much they're spending on their investment, I should say investing in AI, and they can already tie it to a rather significant increase in ad revenue.
I'd love to know how they did that.
Well, you go on the earnings call, you could hear it. But I think the key here is they were able to show how it impacts their current like business model, basically, right? Their ads. I would say there's probably easier to show how AI can impact ads, because they're not like hard or concrete or any like app kind of stuff. So they've done something that some of these enterprise SaaS vendors just haven't been able to do. They've shown how their investment in AI is paying off in increased revenue, which, all right, that's what we've kind of been looking for. Then when it got to Microsoft, and by the way, I think Microsoft is this was after hours last night. During hours right now, I think they're actually down like 10% or something like that. It's kind of crazy, just crazy. But look at what they say here when it comes to Microsoft. Yeah. And I highlighted a few.
Well, the one you highlighted, the first one, as far as I'm concerned, is a monstrous risk that most of those companies are holding at this point.
So right? Analysts noted that 45% of Microsoft's $625 billion backlog is tied to just one company. That
Well,
company
yeah, but
being
you know
OpenAI.
what? No shock, and so is probably ServiceNows, and so is Oracle's, and so is not Salesforce, but so is everybody. Even if OpenAI tanks, you want that. As I said, I'm not thinking we're going to get the total bubble level crash we had, but if OpenAI tanks, we will. Right? I mean, OpenAI right now, everything pivots around their way overblown promises. And I'm not a financial analyst, but I have to be nuts to believe AI can handle the amount of commitment they've made at any point in their existence going forward.
Yeah. So basically 45%, it's almost half of their huge 625 billion backlog is one company, OpenAI, which, as the venerable Paul Greenberg just alluded to, a lot of questions. All right. So the concentration of risk is making some investors nervous about what happens if OpenAI faces future funding or legal hurdles. So that's a big one. But then look at the last paragraph there and the highlighted part. Investors are starting to question when the AI payoff will finally outpace the AI spending. All right, so let's then see what I was going to say genocide, but that's probably not the word I want to say after reading these numbers. Gemini says about ServiceNow. Once again, they really had good earnings numbers and top line and bottom line. They beat, but not good enough for its high valuation. That's what Gemini is saying. But I'm going to just skip down to the last one.
That's the segue to Sven, right?
Yeah. And I watched Bill McDermott with Jim Cramer last night. It was kind of not pretty. He was basically trying to, and he's not the same company as a Microsoft and a HubSpot or even a Salesforce. So he was trying to explain why they shouldn't be lumped in with all these other companies, but it wasn't really going anywhere. No. But anyway, the seat compression fear, while CEO Bill McDermott explicitly denied it, there is a persistent market fear that AI efficiency will lead to fewer seats sold to enterprise customers. So it's almost sort of like AI hurts you when you invest in it heavily from a stock price perspective. That's the only perspective. But and then it also could potentially hurt your business if you are structured as in a traditional SaaS way as a monthly subscription.
Yeah, I see it, but at the same time, look, it's funny. Remember, I mean, we know Oracle took a hit, but that was due to, as you pointed out a few weeks ago, debt financing, not AI efficiency issues. Oracle's actually handling AI per se in the enterprise world. And, Meta, okay, let me back up for 1 second. Meta is a B2C company. All those other ones are B2B, every other one.
And they are based in an ad revenue is their business model.
Right. And so it's not really a fair comparison.
It's not. And it's also, I think the other thing, like that last bullet point for ServiceNow, their ad revenue, so they won't get hurt in the kind of the traditional sense.
Right. Well, not only that, I mean, to their credit, as stupid as they were about the metaverse, and they were clearly stupid, changed their whole company name for that matter. There was equally as smart about AI so far, right? I mean, look, they built it. They're doing in effect on a B2C level what Oracle has been doing on a B2B level, which is they're just building it into the stuff that they already have. Like, the simplest physical one, just because I happen to own it, is the Meta Ray-Ban sunglasses, right? Or glasses. I mean, those things sell out. Like, they're hard to get. They sell out so much and so easily and the sales numbers are probably whatever, given the demand, are probably very high, right? But they just build it into the things that they do, right? And that's what Oracle is doing too. In fact, they say, look, remember I think it was either Larry or Rob Pinkerton or somebody on AI World said, no, we're not going to charge you. You already pay more than enough for our software, our technology now. So we're not going to charge you any more money for it. We'll just let you have it to use it. And that's effective. Look, AI, when it's used properly, that's the way you do it. AI doesn't become the revenue generator, right? AI becomes an impetus to improve revenue generation, but it's not the generator itself necessarily. I mean, that, like, for example, again, I'm just use the simplest one because I just used it. The Ray-Ban Meta sunglasses. Look, they're glasses. They're good sunglasses. They're Ray-Ban sunglasses. The thing that people like, the little extra, is that AI is built in, and it does a really, really very good job of doing it, right? And people buy it because it's got that additional thing, right? So AI, in effect, is driving an increased level of sales for sunglasses that Meta would have nothing to do with if it didn't have AI, because it's Ray-Ban, right? So it's creating a revenue opportunity for Meta. Let's say that. That's what I mean. That's how you use AI, man.
But I also think it's a little easier for them to show
it's
show
consumers
AI monetization, because it's B2C, but it's not a seat-based business model. So there's no increase for a customer just to use their AI on the platform, versus we'll make it easier for you to do your ads and get more customers, and you only pay, basically, when you got to pay for your ads. But if they're able to show how their AI is helping you convert better and optimize your revenue, I mean, that's a much easier sell than, all right, you're gonna have to pay another $50 per user per month, just to use the software, let alone you don't know how it's actually going to work out for you. So it's a different sell, but these enterprise SaaS companies have to figure it out. They've got to figure it out.
You know what? It's interesting. There are a lot of these younger companies out there that are coming into the world as agentic AI related companies, but for a purpose, whatever it may be, meaning, just agentic AI for as a foundation, or as a significant part of a platform for, I don't know, PRM or something, whatever, or for customer journey orchestration. They'll succeed because they're using agentic AI as part of their offering. Their offering is what sells, not AI, right? It's basically what I need you to do something. AI can help me do that better with what you offer me, right? And your particular offering, because it uses AI to help me do it better, I'll go with that. But I'm not buying AI.
I think our guest might have a thing or two to say about this. So we're gonna just skip over, because kind of Stump the Godfather is kind of in a construction, and boy, do I know about this, a construction phase going on. There's some changes being made, so we'll bring that when everything is set and ready to go. But believe me, Stump the Godfather will be back.
Yes, and you'll enjoy its new look.
Ooh, yeah.
Even I might like it now.
Wow.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see about that one. I'm not terribly sure. All right, so I turn things over to the Venerable Paul Greenberg. Yeah, well, you know him as well as I do, but
that's true.
So I'm turning it over to you.
All right. So this is a gentleman who's been on the show a couple of times. This person also is someone that Brent and I would always see at conferences in Vegas, and would hang out with as much as we could, right? Because one, he is a journalist in the truest sense of the word. Not the word, look, I went to J school. I went to what was considered the best journalism school in the country, which is Northwestern, Medill School of Journalism, back when it was still a journalism school, as opposed to an interactive media school. And we were always taught to be, neutral, dispassionate report what we see, blah, 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 blah. And I knew that's no reporter in the universe is actually like that. Well, the good thing about this gentleman, I'll give you his name now, Ron Miller, is that he's not at all dispassionate about things. In fact, he's very opinionated, yet he writes truly. And that's the best way to put it. And by the way, happens to be an excellent writer, and that matters to me a lot always. How good he has a voice that's clear, right? And to me, he epitomizes what journalism should be and the way it should have been taught all the way back when I was going into journalism school in 1967 and before that as the actual principles, which is a person with a strong, fair, honest point of view who can clearly present it in a way that actually impacts other people, right? And at the same time, as I said, fair and truthful. And that's Ron Miller, right? So let's bring on Ron and yak with him.
In a second, you left out a sting.
I know I'm not. I didn't
really.
I let's say I made a point of leaving in the part I suspect you're about to.
Let's get it out of the way now.
All
I mean,
well.
Ron hails from that New England area. He's a big Boston sports fan, big Patriots fan.
So because he's a guest, we'll let him rant about the Patriots for a second.
It's kind of hard because I was really looking forward to a few really terrible years for them, and they're going to the Super Bowl now. So here you go, Ron.
Thank you for that lovely introduction. That was and even as a guy wearing a New York Yankees sweatshirt, man, that really means a lot.
Yep, I'm keeping it separate. You know what? Honestly,
people, Paul, you are my very favorite New York Yankees fans.
Wow,
I think
that's because you're his only.
No, I know a few.
So, first of all, Ron, thanks for joining us, and we are definitely going to get all into Fast Forward and what you're doing with that, and kind of the things that you're going to be focusing on that maybe you weren't able to focus on previously. Mm-hmm. But with the earnings that came out from Microsoft, just completely slamming all enterprise SaaS companies, even companies that were trying not to be put into that category, they're getting caught in it too. What do you make of this? Is this just some sort of AI bubble comeuppance, or what is this?
I mean, I don't pretend to understand Wall Street, guys. Microsoft had a pretty good earnings report. They had a pretty good, usually when you have a good earnings report and you get a bad outcome overnight and the following day, it's because your projections moving forward are not that great. Their projections were in line with analysts. I mean, they were down a tick, I think, from what the analysts said. So it wasn't like there was this big gap between what the analysts were expecting and what Microsoft reported, both in the actual earnings and what they're projecting out into the future. So it makes no sense to me. I went online just before and I wrote down some numbers. Microsoft was down 12% about an hour ago when I went online. The other company, as you said, that reported yesterday was ServiceNow. Again, I did a little bit of research before I got on here with you guys, and a good report. There was nothing wrong with the report. Their earnings were up like 20% for a SaaS company. In this, my God, they're not a SaaS company, right? We can talk about that in a minute. But for a SaaS company, because they are a SaaS company, whatever Bill McDermott says, 20% in this day and age, it's really good growth for a mature company. So nobody can say they're down 12% an hour ago. And then they were dragging everybody down with them, as you said earlier, Brent. I was listening. Mongo's down 9%, Snowflake's down 7%, Datadog down 8%, SAP down 15%. So I mean, like everybody's getting dragged. And then I said, okay, what about their other, big three cloud brethren? How are they doing today? Although they haven't, to be fair, reported yet. Alphabet was just down a hair at less than 1%, and Amazon, which reported, ridiculous layoff that they announced yesterday of 16,000 people on top of the 14,000 that they reported, I think last year was down 1.34%. Now, the whole thing is with big layoffs, that's supposed to please the investors, right? I mean, oh my God, you're cutting operating costs. What's the biggest operating cost? We all hear it all the time. It's employees. It's us. It's humans. So they cut all those humans, and Wall Street's still not happy. ServiceNow reports a good earnings, report. They're still not happy. Microsoft, how can you do a better report than they had? I mean, I will grant you that their exposure to OpenAI is huge, which I know you guys were talking about earlier, and that is worrisome. But is it worrisome like 12% down with a report like that? I don't think so.
It's kind of amazing that maybe it's because it's that hype of the AI bubble. Everybody is just looking for when it's going to pop, and so the first perceived sign of weakness, people are just jumping, just leaving, because it's really concentrated on a lot of these enterprise SaaS companies. I know you mentioned some other ones, but I mean, when I saw HubSpot down, and I mean, it was pretty significant. I guess they're saying, and kind of juxtaposing that against what we were talking about with Meta, it feels like a company like Meta is able to show how all this investment in AI shows up in monetization in their ad revenue business, because it maybe partially because it's not a subscription-based company, and it's these kind of subscription-based companies are finding it really difficult to create a AI ROI monetization story that these folks on the financial side, at least, can understand or can believe in. Is that part of what's going on here?
I mean, I think the exposure that all of these companies have, whether it's Meta, whether it's Oracle, whether it's Microsoft or Amazon or Google, they're just putting, literally hundreds of billions, hundreds of billions, which is just a huge number, into these data centers. And there's no real way to predict that they're going to be able to make use of the capacity that they're building. So the theory is, of course, they will use this capacity because this stuff uses so many resources. But as you say, at some point, if AI doesn't start to carry its weight as a revenue producer, then how do you justify all of this investment? And that's what a bubble is, right? You have so much money being invested, and then no matter how much money a company is making, the valuations are just through the roof, and they're crazy. Right. And you can sort of say, like Microsoft, it's a company that's been around for 60 years. It's not going anywhere. It has a legitimate business model, both on the hardware side, the data center side, even before AI existed, and of course on the software side. And even though Windows is probably going to go away at some point, they have a very strong business story to tell. OpenAI is like committed to trillions, probably if you added it all up, of dollars. And what do they have to, what are they doing? They're like grasping for a product strategy. And to me, that's the bubble. You have all these companies who are bidding, like say Oracle, they have $300 billion on paper from a company that doesn't make $20 billion last year.
I know.
How do you justify that?
You don't.
Where does the money come in?
There's no justification for that. And you know what the other side is on that is, I actually have a very hard time thinking how, I hate to put it this way, but how stupid the enterprise companies are to, even after OpenAI is already committed to two of those deals. Well, the first deal alone was more than they could handle to begin with, and how the companies keep doing it anyway with OpenAI, thinking, okay, we'll do it too. And I mean, if it's,
piling on.
Yeah, but it's so stupid for their own company to. How do they not know that OpenAI can't possibly meet what they've committed to? OpenAI and its Microsoft couldn't meet what OpenAI committed to, right? I mean, nobody can at that level. It's to your point, trillions are committed in expenditure by OpenAI to get back maybe hundreds of billions. Meaning, one way or the other, OpenAI loses on this one. But and I agree with you. I think if the bubble's going to pop, it's when OpenAI is crushed under the weight of that at some point.
And it's not only that. It's like when you look at the frontier model game, Anthropic is really kind of past OpenAI. I think they came out with Claude 4.5. They came out with this this MCP apps thing this week that you can
I'm using it actually,
which I think is pretty significant. I talked to a bunch of people about it. I plan on writing an analysis piece as soon as I have the time to do it. The idea, if you think about the ChatGPT moment, that was November 2022, and that within months, everybody was kind of taking a chat interface, an intelligent chat interface, and putting it on top of their software. Was it Box, Salesforce, Workday, ServiceNow? Everybody did it, and it made sense to do it. Now you have this ability to kind of, without, you talk about context switching, right? And people having to leave, you go into the model, you ask it a question, then you go back into what you're doing, and I'm doing this all the time. I use AI, to help me edit my pieces. I will have it make a little chart of things that it thinks, could be better. Sometimes I accept it, sometimes I don't, just like with my human editors. The thing is, I'm going back and forth between tabs. Now, you can imagine with these MCP apps, and people are working with things like Box and Figma and Canva, and some of these initial apps that are part of this announcement, being able to do these kinds of tasks without having to move between the apps, among the apps, I think it's going to be game changing. And it whoever figures it out, I don't know if it's going to be the SaaS vendors, the cloud vendors, the frontier model vendors, whoever it is that kind of figures out how to package these things and how to get these guys to all work together, is going to, it's going to be a huge thing, because this ability now to work in one place, it's sort of like what happened, if you think back 10 years, when Slack came along, and up to that point, we had enterprise communications apps. Right. They just didn't really work real well, right, because you would kind of communicate and then you'd leave. When Slack allowed you to incorporate, Salesforce and ServiceNow and Workday into your Slack app, suddenly you had something, right? And you take that and you extrapolate that out to a large language model, and suddenly you have something really quite powerful. And I think this isn't being talked about enough, but I think that this is going to be pretty significant.
Well, you know what, to add to that, and I actually, to your point, I keep tabs on all the really major models, like the ChatGPT and Copilot and all these other ones. And I use Anthropic. I use Claude Pro. It's the one I pay for. And but there's two things that I've noticed that are really interesting to me that have huge implications in terms of how this is going to all work. And one of them goes to somewhat of what you said about Anthropic. For example, I noticed now that Claude now has permanent memory, right? And that you cannot underestimate how powerful that actually is. It remembers across all conversations, right? Which, and again, look, ultimately people are using these things to do something, and they don't want to have to start over. And they're looking to do it in the most effective, convenient, and that's the word, even more than efficient, convenient way, right? So, for example, I worked with Claude to write. I'm doing a big home automation project, and I'm using a platform, DIY platform. Claude Code wrote a 4,000 line dashboard for me, and I'm working on a brand new. Well, no, I'm working. It took a while, and I had to do a lot of work with it because ultimately humans still are necessary in this, and that's clear. But so, and then the other day I was asking Claude something, and I said, "Do you want me to go?" In effect, I'll find the name of the conversation, and Claude said, "You don't have to. I know what you're talking about," and presented perfectly. And then I said, "Do you now have permanent memory?" And then if you notice, Anthropic just issued, and that goes to where the cross apps go to, a new product, so it's kind of a desktop level product called Claude Cowork.
Yeah.
Right.
Built
that's
from Claude
much,
Code.
yeah, that's effectively the institutionalization of that permanent memory in combination with the interaction among apps. And you just basically, they literally say, we become a co-worker to you. And then the other thing, though, on the other side of it is, even though, Copilot was originally the parent of the name that everybody used, I'm doing a massive Excel spreadsheet right now that Claude created for me of 1,291 entities. And I have to do and I was trying to isolate some things, and it was in Excel. So I opened Copilot within Excel and said, okay, can you isolate this word, so I can do this a lot simpler. He said, what? Copilot literally asked me, what spreadsheet are you talking about? Wow. It's literally opened it inside the spreadsheet. And I said, the one you're open in. And he said, well, I don't, Claude literally come back and said, I can't see it. Yeah. You have to give me the name of the spreadsheet. And then if it's not on OneDrive, you have to give me the location. I mean, it's like you have to go through hoops just to get to do something that's blatantly easy to do.
Right.
But that's what I'm saying. The gaps are beginning to show too in terms of the quality of the actual technology.
Yeah.
And I'm actually, to your point about Anthropic, I really am placing some bets on them, because ultimately so far, and Perplexity is kind of falling behind now, ultimately so far, from my standpoint at least, and from my observations from the other ones I'm watching and testing, Anthropic is starting to separate from the pack for just the quality and convenience of the work it does, right? And that's ultimately what we want AI to do, right? Is work.
Because if you look at it as your intern, right, and you have to tell your intern, like, every time you edit a document that you don't use an Oxford comma, like, you would have to have adult for an intern, right? But you have to do that with ChatGPT, right?
Well, that's the other side.
Oh yeah, that's right. I remember that now.
But, but it doesn't remember it.
No.
That's the problem. Now the difference will be, if you had to do that with Claude, now it will remember it.
Yeah.
I think Gemini is like that too.
Yeah, I say Gemini is the other. And they took the different model of integrating it directly. That was really smart to me. The way they've integrated into Google search is insanely smart. I mean, because it's basically, you go to Google search and use Gemini, and that's so that they literally have nailed the transition from the norm that most people are used to Gemini without even a breath that had to be taken.
What amazes me is how quickly we kind of switched from keywords, which we were trying to do for 20 years, to having a conversation. And it was frustrating to me until they just added this functionality in Google that I would ask a question and it wouldn't know what I was talking about. Because it was only like, that one-off search in the search, and then now they have like, would you like to talk about it, and then you can start to ask questions, and this ability to interact. I mean, for me, you're journalistically trained, Paul. For me, that's what I do. I ask questions for a living, and so to be able to ask questions of a body of work, or as you say, a huge spreadsheet or whatever it is, to be able to start to like ask over that body of work, it's a huge difference maker in terms of how we work and how quickly we were able to adapt to that as knowledge workers, and feel like if it wasn't there, it was, it sucked.
Well, yeah.
That's pretty amazing transition.
All right. Speaking of amazing transitions, Ron Miller. Ron, now I met you probably about 15 years ago, and it might be longer. I don't even remember where you were writing at the time, because that was well before TechCrunch, and then of course you spent about a decade at TechCrunch.
I did,
covering all a lot of these companies we're talking about right now.
Within like 12 seconds of any announcement.
Yeah.
2,000 word, a 2,000 word article on it in 12 seconds. After
the amazing part of that is, as Paul, as you mentioned, we would always meet up with Ryan at a lot of the different vendor conferences we went to, and we'd be sitting there right next to him, and we're chatting a little bit, and well, look at that, what's going on, and then like every now and again, Ron will look over and say, "Hey, you want to give me a quote for this thing?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, sure, yeah, take that." And then I go back to look at it. And then like 5 minutes later, I get a notification, a Google alert. Your name is how did he do that? How did he post a full-blown article in that amount of time? So you've been doing this a long time, and then I guess a little over the last year or so, once you left TechCrunch, you went to a VC company, Bold Start. And you developed this blog and newsletter called Fast Forward while you were under the Bold Start umbrella, writing a lot of the things that getting deeper into certain aspects of things. And recently you decided you wanted to take that Bold Start newsletter, that was the newsletter you kind of developed under Bold Start, called Fast Forward newsletter and blog, and take it independent. And I think you recently just wrote your first official Fast Forward independent stuff. So first of all, talk about like the transition and why you felt it was time to make go independent, so to speak.
Well, I mean, it was always sort of an experiment on the part of the Bold Start team to take me on and and build this thing, and give them credit. They hired me. They let me build this thing. They helped me build it, and and when I left, they let me take it with me, and I am truly forever grateful to them for doing that. I was able to build this newsletter, and as you said, there's executive profiles, there's news and analysis, there's the newsletter every week that has my commentary, which is kind of my view on what's going on in the world, which is often about AI. But I think maybe next week I'm going to write about why SaaS is SaaS no matter what.
I think I know who's going to show up in.
Yeah. But, my first post Bold Start independent Fast Forward post was actually Amit Zaveri from
ServiceNow.
From ServiceNow. So I spoke to him at the end of last year. And then I got some additional quotes because they bought, they're moving so quickly. They bought a bunch of companies just around Christmas. They bought 2 companies that were pretty significant. So I wanted to get his viewpoint on those. And I mean, they bought, what's the name? Armis, right? For $7.75 billion, which was well above their most expensive acquisition ever, which was what was it? Move Now? What is it called?
Yeah, that was just last year, wasn't it?
Yeah. So I mean, that was earlier last year. So like the record lasted for like 8 months, and then they blew it away. But to be able to talk to people like that, and when I started out at Bold Start, even though I had that, obviously years and years of work and reputation behind me. People, Bold Start's a small venture capital firm. They're like, well, we know you, but we don't know Bold Start. It's not a household name. We may not want to expose our, executive to that. So they became like gatekeepers for me, But then once I got going, it really took on a life of its own. I have, an archive of 50 executive profiles now. So, whenever anybody asks me, I just like drop in that URL to the profiles page, and, I'm able to really show a body of work. Obviously, I had a large body of work before Fast Forward, but this ability to do it on my own is is something, that's really special for me. And I can do some things maybe I couldn't do under the umbrella of a venture capital firm, partly, not because they didn't give me a lot of freedom to do what I needed to do, but they did. They let me be independent. But they're still a venture capital firm. They're highly regulated, and they have a reputation, and you kind of, you want to respect that as an employee. So on my own, I can branch out a little bit in ways that I couldn't there. In a very simple way is that, I'm going to, even though I'm working for a venture capital firm that funds, startups, I didn't write about startups because I didn't want to obviously write about any startups that competed with them.
Right.
We didn't want the blog to be about Bold Start. We wanted it to be something bigger than that. So I didn't write about startups for the year that I was writing the Fast Forward blog under the Bold Start umbrella. So I'm really excited to be, doing enterprise-focused startups again, because that's something I really enjoyed doing when I was at TechCrunch.
Have you started writing about them now?
Once I put out there on LinkedIn that I wanted to do it, I got a bunch of inquiries right away, which again, this is super rewarding that, I created this thing, I kind of built it from scratch. People, the Fortune 500 companies that I was interested in, and the big startups like your Databricks and, were interested in talking to me. And now, that I'm going back to enterprise focused startups, I'm getting, a lot of inbound interest from PR people who want me to cover their companies and companies that I'm definitely interested in. So and I also want to do, more of that, the funding stories. I want to do the same kinds of stories that I was doing.
You're getting some really weird feedback.
Yeah.
There's some work being done at my house. I'm going to put my.
But I want to do those same kind of stories. I want to do tell stories about these founders. What is their founder story? What was their passion? Why did they create these companies? Which was, what I did when I was at TechCrunch. And so that will, I think, be a nice adjunct to the established companies and have a, nice mix of stories on this new blog.
So how do you, given my journalistic bent, there's one thing that's just very traditional thing, but I think a lot of people don't really understand it. So you mentioned briefly that, of course, you got a lot of PR inquiries and so on. Can you explain a little bit about how you people get to a journalist, and what criteria you think about that would be something that says, okay, I'll listen to this inquiry and maybe I'll do something? Because I don't think people get that really. It's not just like a PR person trying to shove something down your throat, but at the same time, because typically you would tend to ignore that because they're shoving it down your throat, right? But at the same time, you don't want to miss one that, well, you know what, maybe this actually is a good one. So can you explain how you think on that?
I mean, it's really hard to kind of explain the process, Paul, but I'm always looking at what's going on in the world. So that's kind of, the kind of stuff that I cover. I'm not generally covering the actual news anymore. I'm covering like this MCP app story. The story came out earlier this week. If I were covering the news, I'm pretty late. But like my friend and former colleague Frederick Ladenois, who writes for the News Stack, which took a big hit yesterday, but thankfully he's still there. He wrote a good story on it earlier this week for the News Stack. Then that got me thinking like, oh, this looks super interesting. And then I started looking into it and I'm like, wow, this is super interesting. And then I got in touch with a couple of analysts, and I got in touch with Aaron Levy at Box, who's one of the partners. And I'm putting together a story. So this is kind of the building blocks are out there. I'm constantly monitoring news stream. I'm looking at what's out there, and that's one way that I come up with ideas. You start to see things, whatever it is, like the last earnings cycle with the big three cloud companies. There was just a lot of chatter about their capex, in their earnings calls, and that got me thinking, like, okay, what's going on here? And then my commentary that week that the earnings came out, I did my regular cloud quarterly, report that I've been doing since like 2017 at TechCrunch. But I also did a column that said, look, this is a really interesting kind of trend that all three of these big three company CEOs talked about in their earnings calls this week. So, that's another thing. And then there's this, there is inbound interest. And so, yes, it's not quite like when I was at TechCrunch where I would just get bombarded with email, but there's inbound interest, and often PR driven, not always. Sometimes, if it's a startup, they'll get in touch with me directly. The founder might get in touch with me directly. A guy today got in touch with me, DM'd me. I knew him. I knew his previous company. I didn't know him specifically, but I had written about when I was at TechCrunch, his previous company. So I listened. Sometimes if you DM me, I'm not going to listen to you if I don't know who you are. But if there's a connection or if it's super interesting, then I'm going to pay attention. So the inbound interest is, there has to be some of that. We have this executive. He can talk about, or she can talk about X, Y, and Z. Would you be interested in talking to this person? Yes or no? I got a pitch the other day. It was about this product that rates LLMs on a leaderboard. This kind of horse race thing is not something that interests me. I think that the benchmarks, I don't necessarily trust them as like kind of the be all and end all of whether these are going to be good tools. They're just kind of bragging rights. And anyway, I wasn't interested. So there's going to be things that I'm interested in. There's going to be things that I'm not. But some of it's PR driven, some of it's from my own brain driven, and just putting pieces together. And I think that's my strength as a human, is that I can spot trends. I'm like, oh, I didn't see that before. Or look at these three CEOs said something about this. That's cool. That's interesting. I'm going to write about that.
See, that's important. Listen, one last I got to make one statement before we go. I'm rooting for Seattle.
Well, I'm sure you're not the only one, but you gotta love Drake May. He's a good kid.
Well, you know what? If he hadn't said he should be MVP, I would have liked him better.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, he said that a couple of weeks ago. Regardless, Stafford should be the MVP. Not Drake May.
Did you see his wife on social media in her little bespoke winter coat at the?
No. I mean, I saw something where they showed since junior high school or something, they've been sweethearts.
Oh,
I mean, which I appreciate. I mean, she was through thick and thin. I get it. And I do like, oddly, unlike Belichick, who, by the way, as much as I hate him, he still should have been a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Absolutely.
There's no issue whatsoever about that.
He might be a jerk, but he was a good coach.
Well, he was a great coach, but he absolutely is a jerk. But at the same time, so it's not like I cried over it, but total tells you the Hall of Fame is worth nothing if they can't figure that one out. Right.
So before I let you go, do you think the Yankees did enough?
Yes. This is one of those TBDs. The reality is we had a very good offensive lineup, regardless. We would, that was not an issue. Bellinger was a necessity, not an option. There was no fallback to him. If we didn't have him, we were in trouble. So getting him, yes, we did enough there. We still have some weaknesses in our relief corps. I will say this. By June, we'll have one of the best pitching staffs, and assuming that all these people coming back are coming back at a reasonable level, but we'll have a great pitching staff. Relief, we need a little help yet. So we'll see. I mean, could we win right now we're projected as the winners of the American League East. I mean, and to have the best record in the American League still. Even
I
now.
mean, if Cole comes back healthy, that's achievable.
Well, Cole, Schmidt, Rodon. Look, Rodon has gone from why did we ever get him that first year?
Right.
Where he was so horrible.
was pretty
My
terrible.
God, we cannot do without this guy.
Yeah.
Right? He's awesome. So, and he's a good guy, as it turned out too, which you could never tell that first year. Anyway, yeah, I think enough. I say we're okay, but we're not World Series winner level. I don't think. Not at this point. Never know.
Nobody is except the Dodgers, right?
We'll see. Yeah. All right, sir. Well, thank you. As always, you just need to come on the show regularly. That's what you need.
You know,
you need to have a show with us. Is what you need.
I would.
Hey, I got it. Just a couple of minutes before they start blasting my house again. But
okay,
we'll talk about that after. By the way, we went this whole time and we didn't even mention Ron is actually going to be at IRL 26 too.
I am.
He came and helped us out last year. He's doing the same this year. Thanks again for doing that. And you want to just do a quick plug for Fast Forward? I know you gave me a code, a QR code that I'll put up, but people who are just listening, where could they go?
Yeah, so you can go to, you have to do the whole URL. That's why I put the QR code up. It's https://www.fastforward.blog, not com.blog. And the easiest thing to do is to display the QR code and take a picture of it, because trying to remember a URL is insane.
Yes.
But I welcome new subscribers. It's free. The newsletter comes in your email inbox every Friday. I try to be interesting and insightful, and I hope that I am. I'll even occasionally put in a sports metaphor. I always put in song lyrics, so you can count on being entertained, if nothing else.
Amen, brother.
So as we close this show out, just to give you a heads up, since the market is closed, so I'm looking at Salesforce was down 6%, and HubSpot was down 11.26%.
What did it deserve that?
I don't know. Microsoft ended up being down 10.23%.
Yikes.
ServiceNow 9.75%. Look at SAP. Jeez, SAP got actually worse than everybody. 15.3%.
Never a surprise to me.
Okay, and Workday was down 7.5%. Adobe 7.89%. So yeah, it's a bloodbath today. It was a bloodbath, and it's all kind of stemmed from Microsoft. You know who was up though? 5%. I'm not talking about Meta. IBM. How about that?
You know why? Because the stock market, in its infinite wisdom, retreats to these former blue chip stocks in a pinch when they feel insecure. They'll run to IBM, they'll run to Oracle, and they always tend to go up when everybody else is going down, because they're looking for a safe haven.
It's McCormick farming equipment.
Yeah.
Well, and you know what else? That's kind of messed up. And you know what else it is though? It's not considered one of the brat pack enterprise SaaS companies that is completely in the grips of AI and open AI. They are kind of viewed as a separate journey, and I think that's why they didn't get lumped in along with being, what is it, McCormick? I don't
know. No, that's the one that everyone falls back to. We fall back to the Venetian Guild Association.
And I'll end with this. For the first time since the metaverse was a thing, Zuck actually beat everybody today, at least for a day. I don't know what happens after that.
I don't know. I just want to say that I agree with Paul that it's kind of they're doing it with advertising on a site that's full of AI slop. So you do.
That's true.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, they're just. Well, okay, we don't have time for it.
No, well, I can do it again.
It could be a whole show, Paul.
Yes.
Matter of fact, and you'll probably
Speaking
be
of which, Brent will be speaking with you.
So, on behalf of Ron Miller, Boston sports fan, I'm Brent Leary.
I'm
No
Paul
apologies.
Greenberg.
No apologies, Brent.
And we are the CRM Players. And when you see this beautiful face, you know it's time for us to go. See ya.
Minnie.